Good evening and welcome to another edition of Stack News. I'm Kira Farley and today we will be discussing the upcoming election. I will be covering tax cuts later on, but for now let's go to Kelsey in the White House press room.
Thank you, Kira. Tonight I'm joined by Ryan Fitzsimmons, who is our Republican representative, and Jerry Marafiotti, who is our Democratic representative. I'm Kelsey Robbins and I will be your moderator for tonight. In a few weeks, we will all be hopefully making one of the most important decisions of the next 4 years: which candidate to vote for. One of the deciding factors for this will be the economy. Is it doing better or worse? Well, that all depends on who you're talking to. Depending on what economic indicators are used, the economy can be shown to be recovering or declining. The Obama campaign will most likely opt for the short-term charts that only show changes since July 2010. These charts will show changes for 4 indicators: new car sales, new home sales, unemployment, and the current economic situation. All 4 indicators have gotten better since July 2010. Romney will most likely be opting for long-term charts, which will date back to December 2000, which was at the height of the economic boom. Although both charts will have the same information on them, it will be arranged to make a point. The long-term charts show the economy hitting rock bottom in 2010 and making whatever recoveries that have been made look minimal, while the short-term charts show only progression since the economy bottomed out. And now over to Ryan with information on the deficit.
Thank you, Kelsey. In this year's election, the economy is definitely the main issue. The need for jobs and economic growth is a necessity as the United States tries to keep up with its international rivals. Underlying all of America's economic issues is our deficit, which continues to grow beyond its means. Unfortunately, President Obama has failed to address the deficit problem to this point. Under his administration, the deficit has risen to $16 trillion, and Obama has added more to the deficit in 4 years than President George W. Bush did in the entirety of his presidency. Because of this, the United States has received several downgrades to our credit rating, which could affect how we borrow money in the future, and has caused tension with countries like China that have lent us money and demand that we pay it back. Although we do not risk defaulting on our loans, if we do not cut spending soon, we could face serious problems down the road. European countries that have gone to default, like Greece, are now struggling with austerity measures. Since these nations' economies cannot afford their spending on entitlement programs, they are now facing strict cuts which are seriously affecting their citizens' standard of living. Republican candidate Mitt Romney has recognized that the deficit is a major problem to our economic recovery and health and has offered a plan to reduce it. First, Romney plans to repeal Obamacare. The Congressional Budget Office recently revised its projections on Obamacare and stated that although the healthcare legislation originally planned to cut $140 billion from the deficit by 2019, it will now only cut $4 billion. Although repealing Obamacare will initially raise the deficit, Romney hopes that by bringing healthcare back to a state level, states will be able to tailor plans that are most cost-effective for their needs. Although repealing major legislation will be difficult and require both houses of Congress, Romney also plans more minor cuts to the budget. These include a cut to endowments for the arts, like public broadcasting, as well as privatizing government-run businesses like Amtrak. Amtrak, a government-sponsored monopoly on rail travel, operates on a for-profit basis. Despite this, it loses over $1 billion per year. By introducing competition and accountability to Amtrak and similar programs, Romney hopes to not only cut spending, but get additional tax revenue from a profiting business. With the economy struggling, it is becoming increasingly important to balance our budget. By cutting spending, tax increases do not have to be as dramatic to achieve fiscal equilibrium. Although some budget cuts will hurt in the short term, not needing large tax increases will hopefully allow businesses to retain revenue that they can use to hire employees and get the economy back on track.
Thank you, Ryan. And now over to Gerald, who will be discussing unemployment.
The issue that will make or break President Obama's re-election campaign is the economy, unemployment, and his handling of the Great Recession. Hammered by Republicans who say he is steering the country in the wrong direction and that his policies haven't worked, Obama made a series of reforms to crack down on Wall Street practices and instituted programs to help small business owners. His stimulus plan, which helped boost the economy for a short while, has failed to significantly drop the record high employment rate of 9.1%. Obama, who came into office facing the unemployment crisis from his predecessor, says economic recovery will need years to fully kick in. That's why he and the rest of the Democratic Party says that he needs to be re-elected. Another of Obama's schemes to reduce the U.S. unemployment rate is to keep people on welfare and to convince them to stop looking for work. Once those who are on welfare stop looking for work, they will be removed from the unemployment U3 unemployment list, and the U3 will drop. Obama will probably not be able to get the U3 to drop below 8.0% before the general election, but taking welfare recipients off the list of unemployment will keep the U3 from significantly increasing, and might even get the U3 down to 8.1% or even to 8.0 before November. Barack Obama is finding it difficult to increase support for his re-election because of the persistently high unemployment rate. It is difficult to be re-elected as president with an unemployment rate at 9.2% and on its way back up. Obama's plan is to convince as many welfare recipients as possible to stop looking for work, to collect government welfare money, so they can be removed from the list of persons who are seeking work.
Thank you, Gerald. And now over to our anchor, Kira.
Thank you, Kelsey. Economic problems are a clear divide among the two presidential candidates, Barack Obama and Mitt Romney. Both candidates want to reform our current tax system. However, they both have very different proposals. Obama's campaign touches on concepts such as raising tax rates on higher income individuals and lowering tax rates on the manufacturing industry. His beliefs include that tax cuts for households where income is more than $250,000 should end, and to maintain current tax rates of 10% to 28% for most Americans. His theory is that everyone should pay their fair share. As for Romney, his plan includes a 20% tax rate cut across the board. If this worked out, people earning between $200,000 and $500,000, whose tax rates would go up under Obama, would save about $800,000 under Romney's tax plan. Also, about 10% of tax filers earning less than $100,000 would have to pay roughly $900 more because Romney's plan allows some tax breaks for low-income earners to expire. As of now, both candidates are only offering general details about their proposals, so we will just have to wait and remain patient until it's determined which plan will be put into action.
Thank you, Kira. Now we're going to open up the floor for a debate. Ryan, how do you feel about foreign policy and what's Romney's plan?
Well, I feel like events around the world recently, especially in the Arab world, have been very difficult for the United States. And I don't feel like Barack Obama has dealt with them accordingly. An ambassador to Libya is dead, along with 3 other Americans. Our embassies are being attacked and invaded all across the Middle East. Russia is pushing our buttons at pretty much every possible step. China is giving us problems. I mean, they own a lot of our debt. So Romney is going to be more aggressive on his foreign policy than Obama has been so far. He wants to put an extra $2 trillion into the military, which, although that will raise the deficit, I think that at this point, with the state that the world is in, it's kind of difficult not to justify it, because it's, you know, it's very tough for, to keep America safe and our interests and property safe around the world. So I think that it's a necessary investment.
How is that going to fit in with Romney's plan to cut the deficit? As you said, he's going to put $2 trillion into the military, so where is that $2 trillion going to come from?
He's planning a lot of it to come from deductions and tax loopholes in the system. So it's going to be tough to find a lot of that money. You're going to have to make some domestic cuts, and it's going to be tough. But I think it's possible to cut that much money.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Ryan. Gerald, how do you feel about Obamacare? Do you feel like it has made a difference?
It has made a difference, but it's still in the early stages of it, so it still has a lot of time to progress, age, and mature. Because with Obamacare, everyone eventually will have health insurance, because it gives them the opportunity that if they're sick, if a parent has a child that is really sick, has the flu, a bad fever, any kind of illness, then it gives them the opportunity to be able to actually go to the doctor, get the proper care, other than just sit there and at home from school, not learning, not being anywhere, just sitting home and doing essentially nothing. Mm-hmm. It really gives the opportunity for kids to get the care they need, and for adults too, where they get what they need, they get healthy, and they don't have to pay too much, mm-hmm. because they will actually be able to afford it.
Do you have an estimate for how long it should take for everyone to have health insurance? Because I know a lot of people are still going without.
Yeah, there is a lot of people without it right now, but my best guess to be if Obamacare keeps increasing as it is, I want to assume by 2016, by the end of his term, if not most, should have.
Should have. And Ryan, I know we've already talked about the deficit, but what are Romney's specific plans to lower it?
Well, like I said, he plans on privatizing a lot of the things that the government now controls, different businesses, endowments to the arts. He plans on, like I said, he plans on closing a lot of loopholes that are used by businesses right now, because a lot of times, like, big businesses will just go around, they'll use loopholes in our tax system to avoid paying taxes. Mm-hmm. So by closing those, you should get a fair amount of revenue, and you still don't have to raise the corporate tax rate, which could hurt business. Mm-hmm. So I think a lot of the money from the deficit will come from cutting back these loopholes and cutting different entitlements that people are currently getting.
Now, these loopholes that Romney claims to be able to close, what do you have to say about him claiming that the 47% of Americans that do not pay taxes he doesn't care about?
Well, I think that was kind of taken out of context. I mean, it was unfortunate how he said that he doesn't care about 47%, but it's not that he doesn't care about 47% of Americans. It's that he realizes politically that 47% of people are dependent on government need, and therefore they're not going to bite the hand that feeds them. If they're dependent on the government, they're not going to vote against a Democrat who traditionally uses the federal government to help people out. So I think it was just taken out of context. I don't think he really meant anything malicious by it. But
you do realize that Mitt Romney is part of that 47%, right?
Well, Mitt Romney pays taxes.
I've never seen a tax form from him.
Mitt Romney released 2 years of tax returns. In fact, his 2011 tax return, he paid over $14 million in taxes. He actually paid more taxes than he had to, because usually when you give massive amounts of money to charity, you are able to deduct like your taxable income. But he didn't use that, so he actually gave more money to the government than was really necessary of him under our current tax rate.
Okay.
And with his changes, would that affect how much for the tax cuts? You said he wanted to tax the middle class less and the upper class more?
He's going to cap the tax rate, the individual tax rate for the upper class at what it is. Mm-hmm. So he's not going to raise it like Obama plans, but he's not going to lower it either. So there won't be less revenue coming into the government from the upper class.
Thank you. Thank you guys for listening. Have a good night.
Thank you for watching the Election 2012 edition of Stack News. Tune in again for more coverage of the presidential race. Have a good night, and I'll see you soon.